Order of operations. Mathematics has its grammar, just like any language. Grammar provides the rules that allow us to write down ideas so that a reader can understand them. A critical set of those rules is called the order of operations. The order of operations allows us to read an expression and interpret it as intended. It allows us to understand what the author meant. For instance, the below expression could mean many different things without an agreed upon order of operations. How would you evaluate this expression? Use parentheses. Parentheses will make your life much easier. Each time you do an operation, keep the result in parentheses until you use it for the next operation. You'll be able to read your own work and avoid mistakes. When you're done, read each step you did and you should be able to check your work. Also, when you substitute a value into an expression, put it in parentheses first. That'll save you a lot of trouble. Order of operations. One acronym used for the order of operations is PEMDAS, which stands for parentheses, exponents, roots, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. This order helps you read an expression, but it also helps you write expressions that others can read. For instance, when writing an expression, you can use parentheses to show what should be done first, eliminating possible confusion. For example, let's translate this phrase into a mathematical expression and then find the result. 5 times the sum of 7 plus 2. Here, the parentheses make it clear that the addition of 7 and 2 is to be done first, even though the order of operations would normally call for doing the multiplication first. Without parentheses around the addition, we would have had this expression, leading to an incorrect result. The parentheses in an expression often make it clear what the author intended. Alright, so here's an example of a long expression, and let's figure out what order to do everything in. So first we're going to do all the operations in parentheses because PEMDAS starts with P, parentheses. So 8 minus 5 is 3. We have then a 5 times a 3 minus 4 squared divided by 2 plus 8 divided by 4 plus, and then here we have 1. So the only ones we actually did anything with were these two right there. So we have 3 times 5 times 3 minus 4 squared divided by 2 plus 8 divided by 4 plus 1. Alright, so this in green is exactly this one. Then we do all the exponents and roots. So here is our only exponent, or there's no roots in here. So we're just going to change that into 16. And we're going to put that in parentheses immediately because when it comes to signs, it gets a little tricky. So you want to, whenever you do an operation like this, just put it into parentheses. That way you don't get confused. The next step will be multiplication and division. So these are all multiplied together, these are divided, and those are divided. So 3 times 5 times 3 is 45, and we have 16 divided by 2, and that's 8. Do you see how this negative sign has remained on the outside of the parentheses? We will deal with that at the end. So for now, we have this done as 8, and we have 8 divided by 4 here. I'll do that in red. And that 8 divided by 4 becomes 2. And see how we still have this 1 hanging out on the end because that's just addition. So we're going to deal with that at the end as well. And so now you see we have 4 terms. We do all of the addition and subtraction from left to right. So 45 minus 8 plus 2 plus 1 gives us 40 as our final answer. Let's simplify this step by step. Alright, here's an example. What should we do first? Well, we should do this first. These brackets are the same as parentheses, and there's an actual operation in here. We have a parentheses here, but that just means to multiply. Here, we actually have an operation inside of the parentheses, or the brackets. So 5 minus negative 2 becomes 5 plus 2, and that equals 7. So now, we can rewrite this whole expression as negative 7 plus negative 3 times 7. So you can see how this whole part just became 7. So what should we do next? Well, we have multiplication here. We have addition and multiplication, so we do the multiplication first. Negative 3 times 7, and that becomes negative 21. So now that leaves us with the same negative 7 is still there, plus, but now we have negative 21. Do you see how I'm putting this negative 21 inside parentheses and I left the plus sign, just so it would be a little less confusing and we don't have to deal with signs yet. But now we're at our last step, and that is addition and subtraction. So we have negative 7 plus negative 21. So when you have negative 7 plus negative 21, then you just add them together and they remain negative. So the answer to the whole problem is negative 28. Let's simplify this step by step. All right, so we have brackets here, parentheses. We have that multiplied by another expression inside of parentheses here, and then we have subtraction of this constant at the end. So let's start with the first parentheses on the left. We would first simplify all of this before we do anything else over here. So we have negative 9.3 divided by 3 minus negative 4. We do this division before we do this subtraction, because division comes first. So this becomes negative 3.1, and we still have our subtraction problem here on the end. These negative signs cancel into an addition sign, and so everything inside of these brackets is now 0.9. So then we move on to our next set of parentheses. We have multiplication problem in here and an addition problem, so we take care of the multiplication first. Negative 3 times negative 4.7 is 14.1, and we still have this addition at the end. So then once you do this addition, you are left with 23. All right, and then finally we have our subtraction problem on the end, and that's still there because we still have a multiplication to deal with before we get to subtraction. So the fact that these parentheses were multiplied together means that we have to do this multiplication before we do this subtraction. So we have 0.9 times 23, which is 20.7, and then minus negative 15.23. Throw that down here, and finally our answer is 35.93. Simplify the expression. Alright, so let's look for any operations inside of parentheses first. So we actually have two giant parentheses, these brackets here. So we have one here and we have another one here. So let's start on the left. So we're going to want to do all of this operation. So inside of this giant parentheses, we actually have an addition problem and two multiplication problems. So first, let's start with the multiplication problem on the left here. So negative 3.2 times 2 is negative 6.4. Now I'm going to write the rest of the equation out as it stands. 4, and I put all of that inside brackets. Brackets 4.5 plus negative 1.2. All right, so first things first, we did this piece. Next, we're going to do the multiplication inside of the first brackets that's on the right side. So that is negative 20. So we can write out negative 6.4 plus our negative 20, which we can put into parentheses, brackets, and then 4.5 plus negative 1.2. All right, so now we can finish this first parentheses. Negative 6.4 plus negative 20 is negative 26.4, and that's all of that. So this portion is done. Next, we bring down the rest of this. So we're going to multiply all of that times 4.5 plus negative 1.2. So now let's do inside the second parentheses. 4.5 minus 1.2 is 3.3. And so then we bring down this piece, negative 26.4, and now we have a multiplication problem. Those two things multiplied together give us negative 87.12.